Welcome back to the neighborhood, and welcome to part one of the two-part crossover event where myself, Phil, and Eric from the Wait For It podcast are going to break down Marvel's Spider-Man 2. This episode is going to be a completely spoiler-free dive into the game with a full spoiler episode to follow on the Wait For It feed this Wednesday. So with all that being said, let's dive in. Welcome to the podcast where two longtime friends and sometimes a guest talk about their favorite games from the perspective of an average player. My name is Andrew Kimball.
And I'm Dylan Wren, and we are your friendly neighborhood gamers.
Marvel Spider-Man 2 is an action-adventure game developed by Insomniac Games and published by Sony Interactive Entertainment. It's the third entry in the Marvel Spider-Man series, acting as a sequel to Marvel Spider-Man and a follow-up to Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales. In this installment, Peter Parker and Miles Morales struggle to navigate the next steps in their personal lives while combating several new threats, including a private militia led by Craven the Hunter, who transforms New York into a hunting ground for superpowered individuals, and the extraterrestrial Venom symbiote, which bonds itself to Parker and negatively influences him, threatening to destroy his personal relationships. The gameplay builds on the foundation established by its predecessors, with an emphasis on the multiple playstyles afforded by Peter Parker and Miles Morales as Spider-Man. The game expands on their existing traversal and combat abilities, including new web-based gadgets and suits that can be unlocked through progressing the story. As with the prior games, content outside the main story consists of completing side missions and obtaining collectibles dispersed throughout the game's open world, with the player able to switch between Parker and Morales to complete dedicated objectives for each of them. Marvel Spider-Man 2 was released for the PlayStation 5 on October 20th, 2023 to critical acclaim. The game sold over 2.5 million units in 24 hours and over 5 million in 10 days, becoming PlayStation's fastest-selling first-party title and one of the best-selling PlayStation 5 games. Phil, Eric, welcome back to the show. Glad to have you here. I'm excited for this crossover event that we decided to do for this game. How you guys doing?
Good. I like the term crossover event. We truly are a cinematic universe here with... obviously, with the Super Bracket Bros being our umbrella, being our Kevin Feige, maybe, I don't know, well, something like that. But I'm excited as we have put this together, and it's crazy. It's already been a month since that game released, or since the game released. Certainly doesn't seem that long, but yeah, excited to talk about it as Spider-Man, the Spider-Men, the Spider-People seem to be the the webbing that holds us together, right? See what I did there?
That was good. Wow. Really, really good. That's what you can expect from this crossover. It's just a little taste of the Wait For It podcast here. Your friendly neighborhood gamers bringing it over to us. I am super excited. We were just recently talking about the first Spider-Man, so it just felt like the right crossover event to do. And what a game. I mean, 2023 has been a crazy year for gaming. And, almost a little cherry on top, a bow at the end of the year. I'm excited to get into this.
Yeah, for sure. You guys were just on not too long ago talking about the first game, which I knew I wanted to have you back. And if we ever do Miles Morales, we'll probably bring you back again. But it just kind of made sense there's two Spider-Men, so we'll do two podcasts on one game. I don't know if that was our initial thought, but it sounds good. But you did mention the first game, so people should definitely go check that out if they haven't yet. But I do kind of want to start briefly with our history with the series, but we went a little bit deeper into it on that episode if you're interested. So Eric, let's start with you.
Yeah, so I have played both the original Marvel Spider-Man and Spider-Man Miles Morales. I had a great time with both games. The first Spider-Man, especially when it initially came out, was breathtaking. It was so much fun. I think as time has gone on, and then with the release of Miles Morales, I think I enjoyed that little spin-off a little bit more as far as gameplay, but the story is obviously memorable. So going into the second game, I wanted to see those two elements collide. I wanted to see some of the improvements in combat with that great storytelling that I was used to. and I'm excited to see if it hit the mark here. So that's a little bit of my history. Spider-Man, though, prior, little bit here and there. I'm a huge Spider-Man fan. Gaming, they never seem to get it right. Marvel Spider-Man has so far.
And Phil?
Yeah, like you said, I mean, both the previous games were excellent, and superhero video gaming is a tricky subject. Like, if it wasn't Arkham beforehand, it was really just a big hit or miss. I didn't play any of those other Spider-Man games that came out like on the 360 or PS3. So when you heard that Insomniac was getting the reins and they handpicked Spider-Man, you knew that they were going to get it right with their pedigree. So they knocked it out of the park, and obviously Spider-Man 2 had a whole lot of expectations, and I'm excited to discuss it with the two of you about whether we think they met those expectations or not.
For sure. And like I mentioned at the top, but it's worth reiterating, this episode will be spoiler-free. We're going to talk about the gameplay changes, stuff that you maybe saw in a trailer, things like that. And then we're going to deep dive into spoilers and story stuff on the Wait For It episode coming up later this week. So I think one of the big things that we were a little bit curious about going into the sequel was the traversal, because we had seen the glider, they had shown it off. And I know personally I was kind of thinking, like, the swinging is so fun. Do I really want to just be like gliding everywhere and going through these wind tunnels? Like, is that going to be nearly as fun as the swinging? Which, I mean, everybody who has played Spider-Man or Miles Morales talks about how good the traversal is, and that being kind of the key element to the game. Personally, for me, I thought they nailed it. I thought it was additive. I really liked the gliding, but I didn't just glide everywhere. I would use it to extend a swing, or I would use it to traverse over a long gap, like over water or something where there was, it's tougher to swing. So I kind of blended swinging and gliding hand in hand instead of just relying on one or the other. And I thought that really, the marrying the two of them and not ever relying on one completely made it stay fresh. And I really enjoyed the addition of the glider. What did you guys think?
Yeah, I just like you said, using it to extend and be an extension of the traversal as it was already was seamless. It was so awesome. I mean, getting to use it kind of like right off the bat too, and they're always nailed that like cinematic moment, but also blending it with gameplay at the same time. They've always been really good at that. So I really enjoyed it. As soon as I got the ability to like slingshot off abilities,
yeah.
I was using that all the time. So again, there was, I think, a little bit of a concern because there is a if it's not broke, don't fix it mentality. But like if it's a good addition like the glider, then I think it's totally fine. Interested to see what they do if they try and add anything again for whatever comes next. Eric, I know you kind of mentioned it when we had kind of just in passing talked about the game in October, about you maybe not being so much the biggest fan of it. I don't know. How did you feel?
Well, here we go. I did not enjoy the gliding as much as everyone else has. Now, I think at first it was a little, I don't want to use the word difficult, but there were some challenges for me, kind of figuring out that comfort, that sweet spot, that comfortability with it. By the end of the game, I definitely got used to it. But I don't know, man. Something about the gliding just doesn't feel like Spider-Man. It just doesn't have that same gravitas that the web swinging did. And I think there were some situations where I found myself going through those wind tunnels because the map's bigger. I got to get from location to location. And I just kind of settled. And I didn't like being put in positions to have to settle. It's not a bad feature. It's a very minute complaint. I wish there was maybe some type of limit on how long you can use it. Maybe that would make it a little bit more challenging. And I'll give you this, like, just side mission wise, and this is so small of a critique because this is a great game, but like when you go to the first game and you have to web swing to get these pigeons, that felt really challenging. Where in this game, not to get into too many discussion points of the plot, but obviously there are some, let's say, mechanized animals that you have to kind of go after. And you just glide through a wind tunnel until you get to them, and then there's a cool animation. I felt like there was just little subtle differences that gliding brought to the table that I just wasn't the biggest fan of. Again, very minor complaints, cool feature. I just felt maybe I overused it or I was over reliant on it.
Yeah, those side quests were definitely not my favorite out of the batch that we got this time around. As a kid, I think it was Unlimited Spider-Man or Spider-Man Unlimited that had the like webbing glider thing built into his suit, and I thought that was just the coolest design when I was a kid. So being able to see it fully realized and play with it in this game was a lot of fun. And I do see that if you just completely leaned on the gliding all the time, I could see how it might start to feel stale. That's why I sort of intentionally just used it for certain situations or where I thought it would look cooler. I do appreciate that they just kind of give it to the player and they don't limit it and they give it to you right out of the gate, kind of like Phil was saying. And they're just like, hey, do with this what you want. You can completely ignore it, honestly, because the swinging from the first game is back and it's just how you remember. It's just as good as before. And so if you want to just use that, I mean, that's always an option. They didn't take anything away when they added the glider. So that's why I think it was pretty much all additive for me.
Yeah, I again just had a whole lot of fun just chaining it together, and yeah, I don't know, and I definitely agree with Eric. Like those side missions are, I mean, I hated both of them. Pigeons, automated animal, whatever it is, they were both terrible. So although again, when we'll talk about this on Wednesday's episode, the pigeons gave us quite a sweet moment, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, I don't know. I really love the glider. I mean, I think it's very also in universe for Spider-Man 2 to kind of continue to want to upgrade their suit and continue to get better and find new ways to use everything. So yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, so the next thing that the next big part of playing as Spider-Man is beating up bad guys. It's fighting. It's the combat. And we all kind of talked about how it was good. I think in Miles Morales, it got better. Because Miles has a different set of abilities that he can use. This game, because you get to play as both of them, there's that variety. Then they included both Spider-Men have sets of abilities that they can use, and then also the gadgets, which was a big thing for me in this game, were completely reworked in how they functioned, and I thought that added so much more to the combat than in the first game. Because in the first game, you had to bring up the gadgets on like a radial wheel menu type thing, and it would like slow the combat down, basically stop it so you could pick your gadget, and then it would assign the gadget to like right bumper or something, and you could use it. And then if you wanted to swap it out, you would have to do that all over again. Whereas in this, they give you 4 gadgets for each Spider-Man, and they just put them on essentially the face buttons. And so you pull one of the triggers, I think it was, and then you can just press whichever face button you want to use that gadget. And so it's much quicker, much more fluid. It feels so much more natural that I was incorporating the gadgets into basically every single combat encounter, especially later on in the game where things get a little bit tougher. What did you guys think of the combat this time around?
Yeah, I thought the combat was great. We talked about this in the first Spider-Man game, looking back on it after playing Miles Morales. And then in the beginning of this game, playing as Peter is not nearly as fun as playing as Miles when it comes to combat. Now, obviously, I know we're going to talk about and, sticking to what you've seen in the trailers, right? Everybody knows the symbiote suit's going to be in this. We're going to talk about that. That definitely elevated Peter's combat. So once these things are happening and they kind of up the ante for Peter, and they're both playable and they're fun, it was a good time. I will say with the gadgets, I didn't use them as much as past games, even though they were more accessible. I never felt the need to really use them until we get into later parts of the game, which we'll talk about on the spoiler side of things. So that's kind of my take on it. Phil, what about you when it comes to the combat?
How did you play this game? We played this completely differently. I was using the gadgets all the time, and not necessarily because I felt like I needed them to get out of fights early on, but they're just cool. I just really, really enjoy them. Like you said, and it's the I think it was R1. You would hit R1 and then triangle, square, X, or circle. And I was using them all the time and loved upgrading them. And then, like Eric alluded to, later on in the game, there is one item that becomes crucial to use as the story progresses. But yeah, that was a great change. And then, on the other side of things, with L1 using the spider abilities, also really, really great. Yeah, I certainly preferred it, and not to get too far ahead, but in the early game, Miles over Peter. Yeah. But yeah, just that simple change made a huge difference. Like, thank goodness they did that.
And one thing I wanted to add was also the fact of the stealth aspect of the game too. I felt like they made huge strides with going with that, like, just that web ability that is introduced and is available to us. That was a lot of fun for me.
Yeah, they basically took the stealth, and instead of putting you in these like pre-created sandboxes that they set up, they're like, hey, here's a room. Put these little perches wherever you want them. Drop down, do your thing. I kind of went to the old tried and true, like, I'm going to stealth till I get caught method, and then after that, it's just time to start punching and kicking. The gadget I think that was my favorite was the one where you would like pull in all the crap that it could grab, and then it would spin it all around and like just knock people out. That was just so fun to see and to witness.
It's funny to see like a trash can just fly in and hit someone in the back.
Exactly. And like you said, it was so in character. Like, that seems like something that especially a young Spider-Man would do, like just make this gadget that's going to pull in some random garbage can to help him fight.
I would like to see in a film, whether it be the Spider-Verse films or like the Tom Holland film, him experimenting with that, but him getting nailed in the face with it and like trying to like figure out how to use it. I think that would be pretty fun. Yeah, but yeah, again, the gadgets, I was using them all the time for sure.
Yeah, the gadgets, and you mentioned too the abilities that you had. They kind of worked in tandem. It reminded me a little bit of like a Final Fantasy 16 or Final Fantasy 7 remake, where you're doing the active combat, but then you have all these kind of other abilities that are on cooldown that you can rotate through and call in when you need them. And for some of the bigger like group fights and some of the boss fights, I felt like those were a lot of times were like make or break whether or not I was going to succeed, because I don't know about you guys, but I really thought that this game was a lot harder than the first and Miles, especially the boss fights, because they introduced a counter mechanic as well. So not only did they rework all of the gadgets and they added the abilities and stuff like that, but now there was this counter ability, which was super important in the lizard fight, for example. But it was also very important for a fight that we'll probably talk about a lot more on your side of the crossover. But something about that counter, it never felt 100% like great to me. And
not at all.
Yeah, okay. So I thought maybe it was
Eric has been waiting for this.
Oh my god. I've been so excited to talk about this.
I thought it might have just been because I've played so many games that are like based around counters and parries, and with all the Dark Souls and Bloodborns and stuff like that it's like, oh well, Insomniac, they tried, but they're making a more casual combat experience. And that could still be true. Like, I don't know how often they've played with counters in their other games, but I think it was on left bumper or something. You had to press at the right time.
I think it was L1.
Yeah, it wasn't like fluid.
Yeah.
Between the parry and then the counter. So they took away everything that was fun about like parrying, and they ruined it basically. And Phil's already bad at platforming and parrying and counters.
We didn't have to bring that up.
So Phil, I don't know how he made it through the game. I
did fine.
I struggled hard, not even on the boss fights, but really against like the bigger grunts that were in these areas. And especially when I was trying to do side missions, I'm going to be honest, I gave up on a lot of them because I didn't want to deal with it. And I don't know, it just didn't feel natural, I guess. It was a weird addition.
Yeah, I understand why they did it, and it looked cool when it was pulled off. But for me as like the player, it never felt satisfying. I died a lot to Lizard and to another boss fight that is a little bit more spoilery. And I was like questioning my abilities as a gamer. I'm like, what is happening? Am I just like bad at games all of a sudden? But it really was just, I think it was mostly the counter feels counterintuitive, because in all of the in the two previous games, it's all been very dodge based, and like if you perfect dodge, then you might like web them in the head, or you might stun them, or whatever. And it has always been more about Peter's agility or Miles's agility and getting out of the way. And so whenever I would see like a flash out of the corner of my eye or something telling me that there's a threat coming, my instinct was to dodge, because that's what we've always been doing. But it was a counter only type attack. Yeah, exactly. And so then I would get hit, and that happened to me a lot. And it never fully clicked to where I felt happy with it. I got to the point where like I was surviving, and I beat the game. I platinumed the game. I got through it. And I think that overall the combat felt good and was a step up, other than the counter. I think the counter could use maybe a little bit of revision if they bring it back.
Yeah, well, I mean, like Eric so rudely alluded to, the countering's not my thing, but I did figure it out. It doesn't mean that I enjoyed it, but I guess it is just kind of a, with game development and people expecting new things, like, hey, the web glider, that's a hit for the most part. Counter, not so much. So again, to see what they take away or tweak a little bit in the future, I think is if they're listening to feedback, will be good. But yeah, I did figure it out eventually, but it again, like you said, hitting the dodge was just so ingrained into our into us through the first two games. Like, and it wasn't, that's one of the things where, again, it was not broken. Just keep it as it is. Like, I get there are certainly a lot of heavy opponents in this, but like the counter just never really, like you said, it just didn't really feel natural. I don't know. I don't think it was bad by any means, because I did figure it out, but yeah, I could do without it going forward.
Kind of going off the combat a little bit, but maybe moving out of this and into some other topics. Peter and Miles, similar concept as far as like controlling them, but both have their own flavor. Did you guys find yourselves preferring one Spider-Man over the other when you were doing like side quests, or when you were in a combat situation where you're playing as Peter thinking, man, I wish I was Miles right now, or vice versa? Like, did you have a preference? Or, because for me, it was mostly just a mood thing. Like I'd play for Peter for a while, and then I'd be like, you know what? I kind of feel like playing as Miles now, and then I would switch. And then honestly, when Peter was wearing the symbiote suit for that like section of the game, I was ready to not be playing as him. We'll get into that a little bit more in the story side of things, but it was like, man, Pete, you're really just kind of, you're harsh and my mellow, so I kind of want to go back to Miles, but
so mean.
Yeah. So did you guys have like a preference, or was it kind of a 50-50 split?
I mean, selfishly, mine's the quick one, because I'm a huge fan of Miles from the movies to the games now. I love the way he swings. I love his motion. I love the way the combat flows. It's just a flow. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. Everything kind of flows easier and better with Miles. So I have a preference there, but man, that symbiote suit was some fun. That was some fun. Yeah. I can't wait to talk more about that in the spoiler side of things when it comes to the story and how it all progresses and plays out. But that is fun. It is fun. It's a nice little thing that we got. Super excited. But like Miles as a character, I just think is stronger combat wise and just with the flow that he's got.
I love Miles' abilities in combat too, just using the electricity and stuff, and
is it still called Venom?
Looks. I think it's still called Venom. Yeah, his Venom powers.
Like, I should maybe change that. Rebrand.
Stole my whole flow, word for word, bar for bar.
Yeah.
What about you, Phil?
Yeah, early on, certainly Miles, but as the game progressed, switched over to a little bit more Peter. I like a lot of Miles' suits better. He has a couple of really, really good ones. I mean, for the most part, they nailed this, other than maybe one really controversial one that, again, we'll talk about a little bit later. I enjoyed that specific suit, but a lot of people on the internet hated it, so we'll talk about that. But
I'm curious which one you're talking about, because I don't know if I know.
Yeah, it was a pretty interesting conversation going on over on the Spider-Man Twitter, so we'll talk about that. But yeah, they were both great to play as. I mean, I don't think I really preferred one or the other. I think it depended on the situation. I will say, though, Miles has some stupid side missions, man. There were some that I really, really did not enjoy. But we haven't even talked about the strongest character in the game. Not even Miles and Peter. There's another character that you play as that's unstoppable. So we'll talk again, previewing that for a future discussion.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk about MJ. And I had something I wanted to ask you guys about Mary Jane and Peter specifically. They haven't ruined Miles yet, but why do they keep messing with these characters' faces? Every game, they look worse and worse. They completely change Peter. Like we've talked about that. Like he looks nothing like the original PS4 version, which I prefer. I'm on record saying I prefer that version. But in this game now, Mary Jane looks completely different, and I thought she looked fine in the PlayStation 4 version, and I think in the remaster she didn't. She looked basically the same. This was the first time I noticed her like, wow, she really kind of they did something to her face, and it kind of took me out every time I saw her, because it was like the voice is the same, but I feel like I'm looking at a different actor or actress. I feel like I'm looking at a different person. And so it was throwing me off a little bit. What do you guys think about them keep meddling with these characters' faces?
They aged her a lot, didn't they? It seemed like they aged her more than they aged the two main characters.
Yeah, maybe that's what they were going for, was just like having her look older, but she looked to me like a completely different person.
I'd agree with that. I thought it was fine, but you guys already know how I feel about them changing the Peter face. Like that kind of threw it all off for me. So I've kind of just been putting up with it. Who knows? I'm not committing to any faces moving forward. Let's just say that.
They should change all three of them in the next game just for the hell of it. Honestly, at this point, I think it'd be hilarious.
It's just Ratchet and Clank and whatever the girl Ratchet thing is.
They should
called.
just swap faces in between all of their properties.
Exactly.
So like Miles should be Spider-Verse Miles, and then we'll get Peter A or Peter B Parker, and yeah, just get weird with it, and no explanation either. Just do it.
I'd be down for that. So I guess going back to something a little bit more important than just, my rants there about faces, but the suits, you touched on those a little bit. What did you guys think just in general? Did you like them? I found myself gravitating towards a handful, and then there were some that I was like, oh, that's a really cool idea. I really like for example, there's a Moon Knight style suit that both Spider-Men can wear. And I'm like, oh, that looks really cool. Like conceptually, I like the idea of that. I'm never going to wear it while I'm playing, because I can't be wearing that in a cutscene. I can't be wearing that so I put it on maybe for a little bit here and there doing, just some random crimes and stuff. But there were suits like that were like out there that I appreciated they went for, but I found myself kind of just bouncing between like 4 or 5 tried and true. I ended up buying the $10 more version of the game so I could have those like additional suits, and I don't think I really wore a single one of them, so that was kind of a complete waste of money.
Yeah, more suits? Hell yeah, sign me up. Never uses them.
Yeah. So what did you guys think of the suits this time around?
Yeah, I think that's more of just a nice to have, like having the option, getting to look at them is definitely part of the appeal. Like, oh, that's pretty cool. But once I got to the middle of the game, I ended up basically doing what I did with the first 2 Spider-Man games, which was Spider-Man and Miles Morales. In the original Spider-Man, once I unlocked the Amazing Spider-Man 2 suit, like that was pretty much the suit. Something about the eyes of that suit. I love that suit. I have an attachment to it.
I rewatched that movie recently. I hate that suit.
That's wild. That makes no sense. And then for Miles, he had the Into the Spider-Verse suit in the first game, so not much of a spoiler. He gets the Across the Spider-Verse suit in this game, and I just kind of gravitated towards my go-tos. I had a couple that were interesting that I think we'll probably save for the spoiler side potentially, because I know there's a lot of like side achievements you have to accomplish for them. But those were the ones I gravitated to, were my go-to ones.
I will say that being able to color swap this time around was a big deal, because I liked the Insomniac suit a lot more when I could change the blue to black. I played in that suit a lot more with the black and red as opposed to the blue and red. I thought the black and the white spider just looked a lot better. So I do think that the color swapping was a really cool thing that they added this time around, which made some of the suits that I might not have normally liked it just like their like base stock colors. I was able to find like a color set that I liked, that I vibed with, and then I would wear that suit a little bit more. So I do like that they added that change. But in general, I agree. It was kind of one of those nice to have things.
Yeah, just to collect them all. Obviously an achievement, but yeah, it was, or a trophy. But
An achievement.
Sorry, I was got my games crossed there. But yeah, I thought there were some really good ones too that you could unlock by doing the side missions. I really liked the one you got for doing the Mysteriums, the ones that you got for doing the all of the bases, the hunter bases. I thought that one that was kind of cool. Would he wear a big mane around his suit? Probably not. I thought it was pretty cool. I thought that one was pretty neat. I really like the Baruiqua suit that you get for I think it was the one where you helped out the school. I thought that one was kind of cool. Yeah. Even though those missions were dumb.
I was gonna say I like that suit, but to get
it was like, dude, it took so long. Oh my gosh. The Wolverine suit was pretty cool as well. That one's pretty neat. So there are suits that, again, I think once I finished the game, I used a lot more. But like in universe, like you said, I don't want to be wearing, the one where like his original Spider-Man suit, like in a cutscene, the one from the movie, the Into the Spider-Verse suit from the first film. Like you wouldn't want to be caught in that on accident. So up until later, for the most part, I stuck to the ones that were part of the story. Also the Black Panther one, the Forever suit, was excellent. That's probably one of the best ones in the game. For sure. So, yeah, I mean, what we expected, we got. They kept it going from the first two games. But yeah, I think it's funny that you pointed that out. I don't think I ever wore those extra suits that you got for pre-ordering the game.
I was like, I need to put these on because I bought the $10 extra pre-order thing. I need to wear one. So I think I put one on for each Spider-Man for like 30 minutes or something, and then I was like, I don't like these. The ones that are in the game, like base game, look a lot better. So
it's not like they were hidden either. They showed us what they look like, but I was still like, yeah, let's get those.
The hype got me, man. It happens sometimes.
Yeah, it gets the best of us. Isn't one of them the one where he's in this the city sound suit, where he's in the hat, the bowler hat, like in the vest?
Yes.
Never wore that one.
No. Yeah, never put that one on. I guess the last thing that I want to kind of touch on is the story, but keeping it, spoiler free, obviously, like we've said multiple times. What did you guys think, just kind of comparing it to the other two games, the characters, that kind of thing? I think that just kind of top level, I was really impressed with Craven. I thought that the idea of Craven was kind of silly. And then I thought that the fact that Craven just has this insane army or whatever along with him, I was like, this seems very, like Saturday morning cartoon, whatever. But I thought that his performance and how kind of straight they played the character really worked for me. I was less impressed with probably every other thing about this story. The way they did Venom, MJ, all that kind of stuff. I really liked Miles as a character and Peter and like their conflict together and their conflict, like how they were relating to the characters around them. It was the stuff that was happening around them that I don't think I enjoyed as much. But overall, I did like it. I thought it was a good game. I just don't think it reached the heights of the other two games. But I mean, that being said, it's like what it is great. It's just when you're comparing it to the other ones that are also great or fantastic or whatever, it's, there has to be a third place. So what did you guys think, just kind of in general, of the story and the characters?
Are we going to talk about the map? You were in a groove, so I didn't want to stop you.
We could talk about the map.
It's a bullet point here, so I didn't know if you wanted to do the map.
I'm trying to keep it moving, Phil.
That's fine. That's fine.
I just assumed he made an executive decision. It's his show.
All right, that's fine.
Do you have a lot to say about the size of the map?
No. I just wanted to derail this whole thing.
I'm probably just gonna leave all this in anyway,
Good,
so people know what I have to deal with.
please do.
I'm so
No,
sorry.
story wise, to get back to the story, which takes place in New York City. There you go.
Right. Yep.
Brought it all back.
It's bigger this time
And
around.
a larger portion of New York City than the first game, just so you guys know. Yeah, there were some things like how do I bring this up again? Not spoiling too much. So Harry, like we've had 2 iterations of live action Harry, right? We don't have we haven't gotten it in Spider-Verse, but and correct me if I'm wrong, Eric, you're obviously a little bit more
They've both
in
been
tune. Yeah, they've been very conflicted characters.
Yes.
And this one is just so happy. Way happier than he should be considering his life, you know what I mean? Like, and I get maybe it's one of those like what's that character? Like Rob Lowe's character in Parks and Recreation, where he's just like he went through a lot in his life, so he's chosen to be this positive person. And I get that. But like it was just a little bit too much. Like I like a more the Harrys that we've gotten in the films again have been very conflicted. They obviously have a lot going on in their lives, and their performances reflect that. And I didn't really get that here until obviously, some things happen. But that really was like we knew that this character was going to show up in a big way, and then here he is strolling into their lives, just like, "Hey guys, I'm back from Europe," or wherever it is he really was that we know of. But I don't know. It was definitely really, really solid. Really enjoyed it. I like I like that Miles is struggling with this mentorship and struggling with the absence of Peter at times, and a little bit of jealousy as well, right? I think a lot of us forget he's still a kid, like he's still so young, and the growth that he shows throughout this, I really, really love, and has me extremely excited for his future specifically.
Yeah, I would just say I think they spent a lot of time, deservingly so, on MJ, Peter, and Harry's relationship. So, like, I felt like that worked for me. And just because, like, pre-symbiote, which I know is where we're going to kind of get into the spoiler talk on our section of the show, pre-symbiote, I could kind of, like, see why Peter and Harry are, like, best friends and why they would want to venture into something together in the story. So a lot
trauma bonding.
Yeah, trauma bonding. So a lot of it felt I don't know, a lot of it felt earned as we get a little bit deeper. It would have been nice to have had shades of that in the first game. Just so we were maybe prepared. It does just kind of get sprung on us, and here we are. But I think they spent the time they needed to get enough of a payoff. I think where the issues lie is when we keep trying to divert to Miles. And story-wise, I don't think that was as strong. And that's not necessarily a full detriment on Miles as a character and the characters he's surrounded with, but I just felt like it wasn't long enough. We didn't really dive into it. It felt like we were always coming back to Peter's story. And I get it's Marvel Spider-Man 2. It kind of is Peter's game, right? They gave Miles the spin-off, which a little disrespectful. But I just think, I don't know, it just didn't always work. I will also say, I loved everything we got with Venom. Oh my God, can't wait to dive into that conversation. But Craven, I liked a lot. Wish we had more. I really wish there was more to chew on with that character, and I feel like things were just left as implications. It was the implication of that character that was more interesting than the actual character itself. I felt like motivations weren't fully clear or weren't fully fleshed out. And just little things that I know when we get into the spoiler talk we'll dive into, but I don't know. There's something was missing, to your point, Andrew. Like, it it didn't reach those heights. And maybe I was expecting too much.
Do you think that they did enough to differentiate Craven's army from the army in the first game, like in the DLC? Like, we're fighting turrets and flying planes, you know what I mean? Like, it was the same gameplay loop from the original.
No, yeah. It was essentially the Sable troops or whatever
Sable,
again. Yeah. So, I mean, it just reskinned. I do think that
with furs.
The animals that they introduced added a wrinkle, like the little robot dog things and whatever that could zap your gadgets and take that ability away from you. Some of those wrinkles were added, but no, it didn't feel like a dramatically different gameplay. And that was kind of the vibe of the whole game, was like, this feels like similar to God of War Ragnarok, Horizon Forbidden West, The Last of Us Part 2, which maybe is a little bit more of a difference between the two games, but like, this was an iteration on the already good foundation that they had with the first Spider-Man, and then throwing Miles in between. It's like we had even less time, between experiences. So they added some cool new stuff that did make it feel fresh, but ultimately, I mean, you were still doing the same Spider-Man things in this game, and I think that showed in the bases and in the crimes and stuff like that. I was like, oh yeah, you could have painted these guys like Sable soldiers, and it would look like it would be the same thing.
Yeah, it's again, I really did like that performance for as far as Craven goes, but yeah, we needed more. He definitely did a good job, I think, painting him as a threat. I mean, he's a solid villain. I think it's funny that we get this version right before this movie's about to come out, which there's no way it can even live up to any type of positivity and that whole universe or whatever it's going on there. But yeah, I thought it was good. I also enjoyed the Venom stuff for the most part, and that definitely tied into a lot of the difficulty for sure. But yeah, again, it's still solid. It's still a really, really good story, but it does feel like a middle child, that's for sure.
Yeah, and we will dive deeper into that on your side of the crossover. Is there anything else closing out this section of the episode that you guys want to say, spoiler free, about Marvel Spider-Man 2?
I do want to ask this because Eric has he didn't platinum the game because that's never necessarily really been his thing, but I also platinumed it. Did you feel like this was one of the easier platinums that you have way more than I do? So how did this land on the platinum scale then, as far as what other games that you've done it on? Did you platinum Miles Morales and the first ones as well?
I didn't platinum Miles because it requires a second full playthrough of the story. The first game I did platinum, and that was my first it was like one of the first games I played on PlayStation. But really, the only games that I've platinumed or 100%ed have been the Spider-Man games, because they're just so easy breezy. Like, there's a few things that I had to like look up, and then I've platinumed Bloodborne and Elden Ring just because like I love those games so much. And then I think I did everything in Assassin's Creed Black Flag back in the day. So I really don't have that many platinums, but I have platinumed some games that are like, oh, you did the Chalice dungeons in Bloodborne. Wow, you have a problem. So I think that this
just seemed
this
tedious,
platinum,
like a lot more tedious than other ones that I've gotten. Like Ratchet and Clank was pretty tedious, and then in comparison, like I felt like I was just again. I think a lot of it had to do with just chasing those damn birds, dude. The metal birds, like
the birds were annoying.
Hated that.
There was one side quest there was one achievement trophy, whatever it's called, that I saved that I didn't realize that I hadn't done, and so it was the last one I had to do, and it involved fighting a specific enemy type that shows up like later in the game.
Oh, and using a specific ability.
Exactly.
The one? Yeah.
And so I had to find random crimes that were those enemies. Yeah. And I had to fight them and use that ability. And so it took me like 10 random crimes to get this trophy because I just wasn't paying attention and wasn't doing it as I was playing the game. And so by the time I realized that was what I had left, I had to like go hunt those things down, and it was kind of annoying. So there was some tedium like that, but overall it was mostly just check off all the stuff on the map. And then there were a few like trick things and like you know,
Get
go
from
find
one side of New York to the other, and stuff.
Go find somebody's grave, things like that were similar in the first game. So for me, it was like I beat the game and then I cleaned up the map, and then there were like 2 or 3 things left, and I was like, there we go. So I think Insomniac does a pretty good job with their platinums. There's nothing too outrageous, but when you're trophy hunting, there's going to be some tedium, I think.
Yeah, mine was that I hadn't used the spider arms enough because I had eventually switched to something else, and I was like, oh, I guess this would have been so much easier if I had been keeping track of this way sooner.
I thankfully caught that one a little bit earlier, and so just like probably towards the beginning of my platinum hunt, but I'd beaten the story, I switched back to the arms and things that Peter gets, and I just went and did a bunch of combat with that and just blitzed through that. But yeah, there were a few that it's like, if you pay attention and knock these out during the game, it'll make your platinum run a little bit easier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's all I wanted to see, if what your experience was getting that platinum trophy.
Yeah, I think that's all that was left for me too, was just the comment of, once this game ends, and I couldn't really put my finger on it, Andrew, when you asked this about the first game, but I think I know why I didn't pick it back up, like why I didn't play it again or play any of the DLC. This game just kind of cleanly wraps up, like it's done. Like if I want to go platinum it, it's not difficult to do. I heard people platinumed it the weekend it released. So and I finished the game in like 48 hours. So it's not a game that can't be beaten or platinumed. It just didn't interest me. I felt like story's done. I'm out of here. And if they have an interesting DLC, maybe I'll come back. But on to the next one.
You also don't have any platinums, so.
Well, again, we all know the Skyrim story here. It'll never happen now. I almost refuse to do it so I don't ever have to continuously relive
because of the
trauma.
implication.
Because of the implication, yes.
Makes perfect sense. Yeah, once it's over, it's over.
There's some cutscenes that you can pick up, that are kind of cool, but yeah, it's not really necessary. Just YouTube them.
Well, with that, let's go ahead and roll into our verdicts for this episode. So the way that we review games on the F and Gamers review scale is A through F, but above A there is S grade, and an S is a masterpiece, and an F is hot garbage. So with that being said, where are we going to put Marvel Spider-Man 2? How would we rank it? Phil, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I'm fairly certain I gave the first 2 A's. So, I have to think, did it hold up to the standard that we expected? And for the most part, yes. I think the story beats for the most part are really, really solid. Combat is still really, really good. I really enjoyed the addition of the gliding, but there's just something missing. And Eric, you talked about this in the beginning. You said 2023 has been a really, crazy year for gaming, and I feel like it's been a little disappointing on my end. And that'll be, that'll come up when we discuss, end of the year awards here, and the most popular award show, which is the Wait For It Awards that everybody waits for, obviously.
Absolutely.
And I don't know, I something is just missing from this, as it's still really, really solid, and
Is it Aloy? Is Aloy missing?
It's just not enough. Just too much water and not enough Aloy. But I still am going to give it a B+, because I think it's just right on the cusp there of being an A for me. But something just didn't hit me as hard as it did in the first game and in the Miles Morales game. I don't know whether I don't know what it is specifically, and maybe that can be adjusted through DLC, but it shouldn't have to be. So as much as I really, really enjoyed it, and the way that I'm talking about it seems like it's a bad game, it is not. It's excellent. But I'm going to give it a B+, just on the cusp of being great.
Eric, how about you?
Yeah, that is also where I am landing. I think it's on the cusp of an A. It's really close. I'll tell you the thing that's stopping it from being an A, because I could have just said an A. It's arguably right there with the first 2 games. We didn't even talk about the glitches that a lot of people experience, but for me, was a constant thing the first 2 days of the game. And maybe if I played it later, I try it again, maybe I don't experience that. I'm definitely curious if you guys experienced it, but I was complaining about glitches within the first couple hours to Phil. And until the end of the story, there were moments where I had to completely start over and restart. And luckily, it always kept my save. But, we talked about, Andrew, in the first game, I never felt out of the immersion. There were several times, story-wise, gameplay-wise, glitches that took me out. And for that reason, I just can't give it an A. But I'd give it a high B mark.
Did you guys swing around as cubes? Did you ever get that one?
I never got the cube. No, I had a moment where I was clearing out a base and I went to go swing away and I glitched into a building that I wasn't supposed to be in. So I just saw like enemies walking around and like I couldn't get out. I just had to redo it. But I didn't have no cube for me.
Yeah, I got the cube once and I had 2 crashes to dashboard. But other than that, like performance, I didn't have any problems. I didn't have any like gameplay problems outside of that. But I did see a lot of people suffering with that. Even so, not really having too many technical issues. I'm also kind of sitting right at that B level. I think for me, it's story stuff. I think that the gameplay, other than like the counter and maybe a couple things we've talked about, I think the gameplay was an improvement. It was like a bunch of small kind of iterative things like we've talked about. But for me, it was just, I don't know if it was that there was too much going on in the story, trying to juggle, Harry's back and Miles is trying to write his paper. And, there's just so many characters and so many things that they're all kind of dealing with. We're not just focusing on Miles's problems or Peter's problems. Or I think maybe it could have been that they threw some heavy punches in game 1 and 2 or game 1 and Miles that maybe I don't think they had anything that hit that hard in this game. I don't think that there was ever any moments that hit like the ending of Spider-Man 1 for me. I think that they tried to do some things on Miles' side, and I think that they were cool and the idea was cool, but like I never teared up. I never felt anything like that in this game. It was just kind of like, oh, this is a fun like Spider-Man story. And I think for me, that's why it can't rank as high as Miles and Spider-Man 1, because that part just it just didn't hit those highs. But I do think that gameplay wise, like moment to moment, I enjoyed this game. I devoured it. I also played it in like a weekend, maybe a couple additional days to platinum it. And so like I couldn't put it down. I was having a lot of fun moment to moment, but just the story, it had some really cool moments that I definitely want to talk to you guys about. But overall, I think there was just something missing, something that didn't quite hit those highs of the first game and Miles. So that's why it gets a B from me as well. So in true, I guess it was mostly level playing field, but also in effing gamers fashion, I've prepared a little game for us to play as we close out this episode. Are you guys ready for that?
So ready.
Let's do it.
All right, let's move into our closing game for this episode. So what I have prepped, it's nothing too complicated. It's pretty straightforward. I pulled a list of Spider-Man games from history, and I have their user scores from Metacritic. So I'm going to throw a pair of games at you, and I want you guys to try to tell me, I want you guys to determine what you think is the higher of the 2 user scores.
Sweet. This is, okay, Metacritic. Okay, got it.
So pretty straightforward, but there might be some surprises. So you guys both get the gist. Pretty simple.
We'll find out.
Yep.
All right. First 2 games we're going to compare, and I want the higher user score, is Marvel's Spider-Man 2 and Spider-Man 2.
It's got to be
so we have
Marvel Spider-Man 2.
I think the original.
So Phil's going with the original, Tobey Maguire. Eric's going with his recency bias. Spider-Man 2 from back in the day has an 8.0. Marvel Spider-Man 2 has a 9.1.
Let's go.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Dude, people,
I was like, all right.
people love this game. People love Spider-Man 2.
Yeah, it's a
You
good game.
never know with the users though, man. Like you
Yeah.
never know what they're gonna do. And people love Spider-Man 2 back in the day. But all right. Next we have Marvel Spider-Man going up against Ultimate Spider-Man.
Ultimate.
Do you guys know? Do you remember Ultimate Spider-Man?
Is that the one that was on the PS2 and the with like the red box cover?
Yeah, it
No,
was like
red, it's Spider-Man.
Yeah.
it was like
Venom in the
Spider-Man's face
background.
close up. Yeah, it had you. I think you played as Venom. It was like comic book style,
Yeah.
like cell shaded looking.
I think Marvel Spider-Man.
Yeah, I think Marvel Spider-Man. I'd be curious to see how close it is, though. I feel like I've heard good things about this one.
Yeah, I really liked this game back on the GameCube. I remember a road trip. My family was driving to New Mexico, and we were in we had like an Astro van, so I was in the very back seat. I had like a little CRT TV that I brought with me, and I had it like wedged in the seat, and then I had my GameCube, and I played this game like the whole drive there. It was amazing.
That's the dream, man.
So good. Never able to replicate that again, because if I could do that now, it would I would ache for 2 weeks after I got out of that
Never
van.
recovered.
Also, you'd be the one driving, so you wouldn't be able to play. So.
Exactly. Marvel's Spider-Man has an 8.7. Ultimate Spider-Man 8.9.
Wow. Okay. All right.
I felt like that would have been a trap, but I just couldn't go for it.
The next pair we have is Spider-Man Web of Shadows and The Amazing Spider-Man.
Oh, Web of
I'm
Shadows.
going Web of Shadows here.
Yeah. I played The Amazing Spider-Man. It was terrible.
So
I like the movie.
hey man, Andrew Garfield was a
I didn't
great
say the
Spider-Man.
movie was great,
He's a-
but
he
you're
is.
not liking
He's a
the
good
suit
Spider-Man.
is a concern.
No, I don't like the suit.
That's crazy.
The suit in the first movie wasn't great. It looked a lot better in the second one. The Amazing Spider-Man is sitting at a 7.3.
Mhm.
Spider-Man Web of Shadows, 8.4.
Yeah.
That's a great game.
Was that the
that's
was
a
that
fun
the
game.
second to last one in that Shadow? What about like Shadow Dimensions and Web of Shadows? Is that the second one? Or
No.
is that the last one?
So
Or are they not related?
they're not related to
Oh,
what you're
okay.
thinking of. Web of Shadows was the one where Venom goes all like cosmic horror and
Is that the one with Wolverine?
and like the
Okay.
city, it's like a zombie apocalypse essentially.
Yeah.
It
Starts
opens
off like
with
the
Spider-Man
the
like
emo, the depressing.
yeah, he's like walking across the roof to
In
like
complete
Moonlight
chaos.
Sonata. Yeah. He's like, I bet you're
Yeah.
curious how we got to this point.
Crazy, right? That's me.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so you both got that one right. Let's see, where are we? Next, we have Spider-Man Miles Morales and Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions, Phil. That's the series.
Oh,
you're
okay.
thinking
Yeah.
of.
That's right.
It's an
Okay.
interesting one. I mean, bias is Miles.
I know people like Shattered Dimensions. I'm gonna go Shattered Dimensions just so we don't pick the same thing.
Okay, so Miles Morales sitting at a 7.7.
Okay.
Wow.
I'm feeling good.
Yeah,
I'm
feel
feeling
good.
good.
Shattered Dimensions sitting at a 7.9.
Okay, so
Just barely
I didn't
beat
feel
it.
great.
Yes.
Had you put Web of Shadows there, I might have picked that over Miles, but I don't know. I knew out of
Yeah.
Web of Shadows and Shattered Dimensions, I could have sworn, and I guess I was right. Web of Shadows is better received. So
Yeah, Web of Shadows, the users, us gamers really like that game. It's not
Mhm.
a great game, but it found a soft spot in gamers' hearts. The Shattered Dimension series, there were two games. They were linear in a time where Spider-Man had just been pumping out open world games.
Yeah.
And so people kind of liked that breath of fresh air, like you focus more on unique crafted levels.
Mhm.
But is still at a time where Spider-Man games just weren't amazing. I want to say it had pretty good like voice talent and stuff behind it too, but I can't remember who all was involved, so I'm not going to try to say.
Yeah. That was the one where Peter Parker is the villain.
It's
Isn't it him from the future?
yeah, it's the one with like the four Spider-Man. It kind of did
Yeah.
the what the
Spider-Verse
movie,
stuff.
yeah, the Spider-Verse
Yeah.
thing before Spider-Verse did. On a much smaller scale, obviously.
Yeah.
The next pairing we have is Spider-Man 3 and The Amazing Spider-Man 2. The Battle of the Turds.
I've also played both of these. They're both bad.
Do you remember Spider-Man 3, how you were you
Yeah.
were essentially taking over sections of the city? Yeah.
Not good.
They tried to capitalize on 2, and I mean, I'm sure the game sold pretty well, but
My gut's telling me that The Amazing Spider-Man 2 had some redeeming qualities. I've never played either of these
sucks,
games.
man.
So
That game's so
I'm
bad.
going.
Dude.
I'm going Amazing Spider-Man 2 here.
I'm going Spider-Man 3. It's gotta. It's still not good, but like it's better than Amazing Spider-Man 2. That's a bad game.
so Spider-Man 3 is a 6.7.
Okay.
The Amazing Spider-Man 2, 6.4.
Damn.
Yes.
Phil, why are you playing the Amazing Spider-Man games? Why are you so
Dude,
well-versed?
remember I had that like portion of my life where I kept buying movie tie-in games. Like remember the Pirates of the Caribbean?
Well, hold on. That third one was really good.
Which one?
At World's End, I think, right?
Oh yeah, no, it was great, but like it was just like don't buy these. You know, all the
Most of
Marvel
them are
games,
bad.
like I was getting the Marvel game. I mean the Captain America tie-in's actually not that bad, but all the rest of Iron Man terrible. Like it was just a portion of my life I'm not super proud of. I was also working at GameStop, so I probably got a discount.
Right. I think I played the first Amazing Spider-Man game, and that was the one that kind of broke me, and I was like, you know what? I don't really need to play any more Spider-Man games.
Don't need this.
And then Insomniac's Spider-Man finally came out and was like, thank you. You understand.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so this is the last 2 that I have for you, which means that Eric
tied?
can tie it up, and
okay.
you can share the trophy, or Phil can take it home. The score is currently Phil 3, Eric 2. We have Spider-Man, Edge of Time, and Spider-Man, Friend or Foe.
Ooh.
End of time.
Friend or Foe was based off of the cartoon, right?
Yeah, I don't really remember that one. I was reading about it, prepping for this, and yeah, it was definitely geared towards a younger audience.
Is Friend or Foe the one that has like all the villains in the back behind him?
Yeah.
I'll go Friend or Foe.
And Eric, you went Edge of Time?
Eric, you're on mute. I don't know if you were going to confirm or
No,
you're just making.
I was just doing a bunch of
He's
thumbs up.
he's gesturing to the camera for the audio listeners.
and to the audio only listeners of this episode.
We appreciate that.
You're welcome.
All right, so this is it for all the backpacks, which weren't in this game this time around. So
Yeah, good.
Spider-Man, Edge of Time, 7.2.
Uh-oh.
That was the sequel to Shattered Dimensions. It only had 2 Spider-Men. People didn't like it as much. And then Spider-Man Friend or Foe, 7.0.
No.
So
Damn.
Eric tying it up there at the end. I don't have a tiebreaker, so you guys are just going to have to share the trophy. Congratulations.
Don't want it. That's fine.
There we go.
I mean, there's some bad Spider-Man games out there.
Yes, there were. And there were iOS games and a whole bunch of like handheld games and stuff, but I didn't want to go too deep into the weeds with it, and I also didn't know like how many of those were actually going to have scores on Metacritic. So I was like, let me go for some of the more recognizable ones. But yeah, that's it. That's my little game for you. Thank you guys for participating. I had fun hosting it. So
That was good.
bringing this thing to a close, a little bit of housekeeping for everybody here. Part 2 of this conversation, where we're going to dive deep into the story, is over on the Wait For It podcast feed. So guys, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about that and everything else you've got going on?
Yeah, so this episode for Your Friendly Neighborhood Gamers is releasing on a Monday. That means 2 days from now, if I'm doing my math right, means Wednesday has come around, and the Wait For It podcast will be releasing a spoiler-filled discussion in our series called The Game Room Where It Happens, where we're going to dive into Spider-Man 2 with Andrew. So you definitely don't want to miss that, and if you are listening, go do it. We did a crossover event. So you're supposed to stop listening in about a minute and then go over there. Or if you're listening on Monday, because you're great listeners, just set a reminder 48 hours later.
I was like, what if they're listening to it on
That's what
Monday?
I was thinking too,
What
but
are the
I was
chances?
just going to let him go.
What are the chances?
You sit there and wait until Wednesday.
Yes, you just do nothing.
Until we upload that episode at 3 a.m. Eastern.
Or, selfish plug, you can join our Patreon for some reason and get early access, because this will probably be available that Monday. So, just saying. But yeah.
If you don't want to wait.
Yeah, wherever you're listening to your friendly neighborhood gamers, we are there as well. So we'll make it easy for you. Info in the show notes, I'm sure. And while you're waiting, if you're listening on a Monday, go listen to the Spider-Man episode that we did last month.
Yeah.
Also, we just released a completely unhinged and totally messy revamped version of What Did I Miss in November. And it was a disaster, and it was a lot of fun. So make sure you check that out, a bonus episode that we're hopefully going to do every single month. And we're going to rotate guests from all over the Super Bracket Bros cinematic universe. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And as I teased earlier, the most anticipated award show in all of entertainment, the Wait For It Awards, is happening in the month of December. We have to figure out what this year's most morbid movie is going to be. I don't know if we had a Morbius meme in 2023. You got to figure it out.
That's why I tune in every year. As far as us, if you wouldn't mind, if you would go check out our YouTube channel, we would really appreciate it. We've got more short form scripted kind of content over there. We've got some game reviews. We've got some lists, some rankings. Dylan has some information on if you're trying to get into Destiny. All sorts of good stuff on our YouTube channel. We would definitely appreciate it. The other thing that I will plug before I let you get on out of here is our Discord server. Social media has always kind of sucked, but now it's like even worse. So like Discord is the best way to come hang out with us, to chat with us, tell us what you thought about Spider-Man 2, tell us your favorite parts of the gameplay improvements, things like that, the story, all those fun things, or just jump in and talk about whatever you want. The Game Awards are right around the corner, and we have a channel in there where we're all just going to be like reacting to stuff live. So if that sounds like fun to you, we'll be talking about the awards and complaining about the structure of that show like we do every year. So definitely jump in there if you want to hang out with a cool group of gamers. The Wait For It guys are technically in there, but it's really hard to get them to talk to you. You know, they're too busy.
You should do a watch party. That'd be fun.
Of the Game Awards. Yeah, that might not be a bad idea. I'll see if we can maybe pull something together. No promises, but maybe we'll do something like that.
You heard it here first.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, other than that, I think that's about it for this half of the Spider-Man 2 crossover event. I appreciate you guys joining me, Eric and Phil. Thank you so much for being on my side of this double hit. I am looking forward.
Double feature. Yeah,
double feature. I'm looking forward to returning the favor in about 5 minutes. So, illusion shattered.
It's gonna be so. We're gonna have to bring a whole new energy to that episode that we just don't have because we're technically an hour and a half into it at that point. But
exactly,
we'll figure it out. They don't know.
We will make it work. But yes, thank you all so much for listening to this episode of the podcast. We really appreciate it, and we will catch you on the next one.